I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. I can't take it any longer. Give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Welcome back to Filmmaster Reviews. I'm Adam J. Well, everyone kept waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it seems like my busy life never takes a goddamn break, but sorry guys, what can you do? Screw it. I'm doing it now. Better late than never. Today, I'm doing the ranking that nobody will shut up about me doing, the Saw franchise. Now, this is a series that I've held in higher regard than most, as I like most of the entries in this series, and even the ones I don't really like have things that are fun to watch. I genuinely love how every entry in this series felt like a puzzle piece, and you had to wait until the following sequel to put more of the puzzle together. It's something that really made it stand out uniquely among other horror franchises, and I loved it for that. Now, as these movies have been out for a while, there will be a lot of spoilers, so if you haven't seen these movies, give them a watch and then come back. I think the series is definitely worth your time despite its shortcomings. Now, watching these again, do all of them hold up for me, or are there ones that I once loved that have sort of lost their luster? Well, today we're going to take a look and find out. Here is my ranking of the Saw franchise. Coming in at number 8 for me is Saw: The Final Chapter, also known as Saw 3D. Yeah, the final chapter entry may have topped my Friday the 13th list, but it really doesn't here. The problem with this film was that it was originally written as 2 films. It was supposed to be an epic 2-part finale for the series, but the studio said, fuck 2 movies! Take all these ideas and cram them all into one clusterfuck. Sadly, that's exactly what these writers had to do. They had to take both of these scripts and cram them into one. And it's a real shame. Seriously, if you get the chance, listen to the DVD commentary from the writers on this film. They had great ideas that sadly never came to light. For example, those 2 guys in the pig masks at the end of the movie with Dr. Gordon were actually the guys in the Bros Before Hoes trap at the beginning of the film. Yeah, didn't know that one, did you? But what exactly is wrong with this film despite that? Well, the traps in the film don't really connect with anything. The Sean Patrick Flannery subplot is interesting, but it doesn't really go anywhere at the end, and the film suffers a lot of pacing issues because it's such a mess. However, the one thing I do love in this film is how it ended. Why? Because I have been calling that fucking twist ending since Saw 3. Don't believe me? Go back in my channel and watch my Saw Saga reviews from before this movie came out. The videos are shit, but I clearly in that video called the ending of Dr. Gordon being alive and working with Jigsaw. Bragging rights aplenty, bitches! And honestly, how could he not be? It's really the only thing that had most of these traps make any sense. John Kramer was an engineer, not a surgeon. But who is a surgeon? Who could possibly make a lot of these traps happen? Dr. Gordon, ladies and gentlemen! It also explains how the hell Jigsaw was able to get a hospital bed, medical equipment, and medication in Saw 3. It literally solved all of these plot holes, and I have to admit, I loved the final scene of this film. It was very satisfying. So yeah, the film isn't good by itself, but it has probably the most satisfying ending to any film in this franchise. So, fuck it, I'll give it that much. Coming at number 7 for me is Saw 4. Now, honestly, as I said, I don't really hate any film in this series. They all bring something to the table. But the reason Saw 4 is so low on this list is that it's the one I tend to forget the most. I love Lyric Ben as Riggs. I like the story progression he goes through about not being able to save everyone and how some people just need to save themselves. I even love that Tobin Bell's John Kramer gets more of a backstory here and is given more of a chance to shine as an actor. But this is a film that, because it had to set a new status quo, feels like it's just constantly shoving new information in your face that wasn't there before. It feels like too much is being revealed too soon, and it really loses me a lot of the time because of that. On top of this, the biggest thing that pissed me off in this movie was the ending. Don't get me wrong, I like the idea of Saw 4 and Saw 3 taking place at the same time. That's an interesting concept. That is pretty damn cool. What pissed me off was the way they just threw Jeff's character away from Saw 3. They just killed Jeff. They were setting up some really cool shit with him, and apparently, nope, he just died moments after we last saw him. Such a fucking waste. Some of the traps are cool. I really love how they deal with the rapist piece of shit in the motel. That was incredibly satisfying. There's a lot to like in this movie, but it's one of the more lackluster sequels despite the things that do work about it. Coming in at number 6 for me is Saw 5. Now, I want it known, this movie features some of my favorite moments in this series. Those moments being of Hoffman and his backstory and his relationship to Jigsaw. I used to hate this movie. I mean, really despise it. But after viewing it again, it kind of became another Nightmare 2 situation, where I've learned to accept it for what it is as opposed to what I might have wanted it to be. Everything involving Hoffman and his cat and mouse game with Strom was great. I really hated how Hoffman was just revealed as some random-ass villain in Saw 4, but they really do a great job of explaining it here. You can actually kind of sympathize with Hoffman's character when he does what he does because of the backstory with his sister, and Costas Mandylor's performance is just fantastic. I mean, performance-wise, he's right up there with Tobin Bell. Also, another plus to this movie is that Mark Ralston plays the police chief, and as I've said before, I am pro any Aliens cast member being in any horror movie under any circumstances. But the good kind of stops there, and this is because of everything involving the trap subplot. Much like the trap subplot in Saw 3D, it's not only pointless, but it's never brought up again after this film. Everything involving this big trap situation feels like such a waste. Now, don't get me wrong here, I love the concept of this trap, how they find out, oh shit, we didn't have to kill each other, we actually had to work together through this whole thing, but it's so disconnected from the rest of the movie, and it takes away more than it adds. So yeah, I've come around a lot to this film, I really have, and I do enjoy watching it, but the useless trap subplot leaves much to be desired, and ultimately had it lower on this list. Coming in at number 5 is Saw 2. Yes, I know, yeah, I know. I know this one tops the list for a lot of people, but for me, I've always had a ton of issues with this movie. I will say this, the film is well directed, it's well acted for the most part, and I really love Donnie Wahlberg in this. It's actually a shame the later sequels didn't utilize him more. It's really not a bad sequel, especially considering that it didn't even start out as a sequel to Saw. Yeah, Darren Lynn Bousman was actually shopping around a script when Lionsgate contacted him. Darren said he'd allowed them to convert his script into a Saw sequel on the grounds that he could direct the film. Lionsgate approved, the rest was history. So, given that information, I can't really say it's a bad movie. If anything, it's better than it has any fucking right to be. Starting off as something else and being helmed by a first-time director who I've honestly come to love and admire over the years. My issues with this movie are as follows. Folks, let's be fair here. If you're breathing in a deadly nerve agent through a ventilation system, wouldn't anyone's first thought be, cover the damn vents? I mean, it's not exactly a solution, but it would at least buy you some time. I found the bickering between the characters in the house to be often annoying, and some of the choices to be incredibly dumb. But my biggest issue with this movie, and I mean my biggest issue, was how fucking predictable it was. Guys, I am not even joking with what I'm about to tell you. I called both twists for this movie watching the trailer. Not even, like, 10 minutes into the movie. I mean, watching the trailer before I even saw the damn thing. I called both twists. Now, what other reason would Amanda have for being back? And for that matter, how many twists can you possibly have with video footage? It was so damn obvious what the hell was going on. It was painful. So if this one's your favorite, more power to you. For me, it's just kind of your average standard sequel. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, this is where you're all gonna get wild in the comment section and start hating me. Number 4 is the original Saw. Yes, bring me your hatred out to fucking impress you, what up? I know, how dare I have my own opinion and place this at number 4 instead of the top 2. I'm just evil like that, folks. But in all seriousness, as much as I loved this movie when I first saw it, over the years, I've just noticed so many more problems with it. I'm aware this is the one that started it all, but can we please stop pretending that this is like an untouchable, perfect film, for the love of God? The premise all around is great. You got a guy putting people in life or death situations to make them appreciate the lives they have. It's simple, effective, and gets the job done. Monica Potter, Danny Glover, and Carrie Elwes all give fine performances. The way the story unfolds with Adam and Dr. Gordon locked in the bathroom together was interesting to watch. The cinematography, the score, all excellent. Lee Winnell, the writer of this film, plays Adam. He's one of the main characters. And dear fucking God, is his acting terrible! I mean, my God, it's kind of hard to put into words how bad this acting is. On top of this film has several inconsistencies in its plot, like when Gordon cuts off his foot to get to the ringing phone. As soon as he gets free, the phone is gone! It's not on the floor, it's no longer ringing, it's not in the room! He just immediately goes for the gun and shoots at him! Where the fuck was the phone? Where did it go? Seriously, go back and watch that scene. I am not making this up. But the biggest moment of stupidity in this film, for me, the thing that I watch it and it's laughably terrible, is when Tap and Sing confront Jigsaw. They hear him coming up a slow-moving elevator, and instead of getting on either side of the elevator, pinning him down and cuffing him when he comes in the room, like anyone who wasn't stupid would fucking do, they instead decide to hide, let him get close to one of his victims, spring a few traps, and oh yeah, Sing ends up fucking dead. These are supposed to be the smart cops, right? Now, you may be saying to yourself right now, oh, Adam, you're just nitpicking. No, fuck you, I'm not nitpicking. This is common sense shit. And while we're on the subject, why wouldn't you get a warrant? You literally have everything you need to obtain a damn warrant. You could literally go in with a SWAT team. You people are idiots. So yeah, the premise is cool, the traps are cool, the reverse bear trap is one of the most iconic items in horror at this point, and while I didn't like some of the acting, most of the characters and their individual flaws are interesting. Plus having one of the best shit your pants twist endings in film history helps too. That being said, guys, I'm sorry, I can't sit here and pretend the film is perfect, and neither should anyone else. It may be your favorite, but it's not mine. Coming in at number 3 for me is Jigsaw, the recent resurgence of the series that came out a couple years back. After the final chapter, there was really nowhere to go but up, and I was excited to see this series finally make a comeback after a long hiatus. Was it perfect? No, far from it, but was it one of the most satisfying entries in this series? Absolutely. 10 years after the original Jigsaw murders, bodies are reappearing around town, matching descriptions of Jigsaw killings. This film offered a fresh direction for the series, one that I really hope they follow with the upcoming Spiral spinoff. I mean, it's the same writers, so fingers crossed. Because we have a new cast of characters, the whole mystery aspect of the film feels more genuine, at least more than it has in a while. There's suspense for the first time in a while because we have no idea who's really pulling these strings. The idea to swap back and forth between present day and 10 years in the past worked to the film's advantage, and the twist of who was behind it all was genuinely interesting. In fact, rewatching it, this film was a lot better than I even remembered it. That being said, there is one huge flaw of this film for me, and that is the traps are kind of lame. Yeah. Good story, good characters, great ideas, just some lame traps. That being said, based on the context of the film, this was clearly by design. It makes sense that the traps would not be as elaborate because, spoiler alert, this was supposed to be the first set of traps that Jigsaw created. So you could easily make the argument that they aren't anything wonderful because Jigsaw was just starting out at that point. Still, when the traps are lame in a Saw film, it's still not good, regardless of what the context is. I mean, I can understand it. Doesn't mean I have to like it. Still, if you were ever on the fence about giving this film a go, I'd highly recommend it. I personally feel it's one of the most underrated entries in the franchise. Coming in at number 2 for me is Saw 6. 4 was mostly forgettable, 5 had its moments, but fell a little short. 6 was an absolute blast from start to finish, and unlike many of the films in this series, this one actually had something to say. It's actually about something. There's really good commentary throughout in this regard, and it's easy to see why so many fans of the franchise really love this film. The film is essentially about the healthcare industry, and the main character being tested is the head of an insurance company who decides every day with his company's wallet who lives and who dies, without any care in the world for these people. It's only when he's put in this horrific situation where he quite literally has to decide who lives and dies at every corner that he realizes what a piece of shit he really is. Jigsaw puts him in a series of traps where, in some cases, he's forced to choose between his own life and the lives of his employees. He has to choose in other traps, does this employee live or does this one live? Out of all the tests and series of traps in this franchise, this is by far my favorite because it actually has something to say. It's not Shakespeare, but it's effective as hell. On top of that, the whole cat and mouse game with Hoffman, the cops, and Jill Tuck really amps up the tension when the film needed it. And the final shot of this film is as horrifying as it is satisfying. Saw 6 just fucking rocked. And coming in at number 1 for me is a very controversial pick, Saw 3. This has been my favorite entry in the franchise since it was released. After rewatching the whole series, it's still my favorite. Saw 3 has everything I want in a Saw film. Superb acting, great traps, the best twists of the series, gorgeous cinematography, emotional storytelling, and loads of suspense. There's even enough blood in this one to satisfy all you gore hounds out there. Saw 3 represents everything a Saw film should be. Angus McFadden's performance as Jeff is phenomenal. Jeff is my favorite character in this series, because he's not a guy who necessarily did anything wrong. He didn't cheat on his wife, he didn't cause an accident, he didn't attempt suicide, he didn't kill anyone. He's just a man who's lost everything, wants revenge on the man who ran over his son, and needs to find a way to let go and forgive. Jigsaw puts him face to face with the man who ran over his son, the bystander who did nothing to help, and the judge who let his son's killer walk free. He has to decide whether to let them die or save them, but in order to save them, he has to let go of something that belonged to his son. This all works beautifully because Jeff is being forced to see these three people in a way he's never seen them. As people. Just people. As actual human beings with flaws. It shows a more human side to these characters that no other film in this franchise has shown us. I think the one that came the closest was maybe Saw 6, but even that wasn't this emotional. This is a great character study on loss and the way it affects us mentally. In addition, this perfectly parallels Amanda and her fears of losing John, as he is currently on his deathbed. You see the turmoil it puts her through and how she takes it out on Lynn Devlin, who's being forced to keep John alive. Also, the movie offers 3 separate twists. One of them I kind of figured out towards the end, but the other 2 were so well hidden and beautifully built up that it ultimately made me forgive it. I loved the twists and turns of this movie. The traps are inventive, the acting is spectacular, it has some of the best character moments and commentaries of the series, and in my opinion, it's the most emotionally resonant of the series. Saw 3 is an incredibly underrated sequel, and remains my favorite in the franchise to date. So how would you rate the Saw films? Please let me know in the comments, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more.